Good day and greetings from Babson College, which is just outside of Boston, Massachusetts. I'm honored and privileged to be invited by Amity University and Dr. Singh to speak with you for just a few minutes. I'm envious of Larry. You negotiated up to 6 minutes. I got only 5 minutes, but I'm certainly inspired by the panelists' remarks, and I hope that what I speak about is not repetitive, but rather reinforces some of the themes that they introduced. I've had the privilege to work at Babson for over 21 years, and in that time I've observed, envisioned, and implemented programs that have facilitated the mobility of students from India to the United States, and in fact US students to India. This exchange has been enormously beneficial for the institutions involved, but even more importantly, for these lifelong connections and contributions that our alumni have and will continue to make as bridge builders between the two nations. At Babson, we have always benefited from having hundreds of Indian students among our undergraduate and graduate students, and we hope to continue that trend, but I think that COVID-19 has presented unique challenges and opportunities. The pandemic has created a very challenging environment for today's educators and learners. It has brought mobility to a near standstill. It has required countless hours for reimagining courses, course content, modes of delivery. At the same time, it has opened up opportunities that were always there, but now we find that the trends have been accelerated, as has been mentioned by other panelists. At Babson, we've been labeled as this preeminent institution for entrepreneurship education. And with that, I think comes both pride, privilege, and a sense of responsibility. We pioneered this methodology of entrepreneurial thought and action, a way in which we should envision action-oriented education, experiential, and from that we learn and we build together. So, for instance, at the Babson Academy for the Advancement of Global Entrepreneurial Learning, which I lead as the dean, we have 3 goals. One is to provide access to Babson's entrepreneurship education pedagogy and methodologies. We hope to inspire educators across the world in the United States and also in students that entrepreneurial thinking and action is a way to solve some of our most entrenched problems in the globe. And of course, to convene and connect, because we don't kid ourselves that the way we will advance entrepreneurship education is through connection and convening of educators, which I'm so glad to be on this panel and congratulate Amity at a time where we all feel very isolated to bring together thousands of people through this summit and beyond. So we've offered traditional programs for students and faculty for many years, face-to-face, but given the limitations around mobility, as was mentioned, overnight we found ourselves in a space where we had to rethink what we were doing. For instance, let me just give you some examples from last summer. And that is that, traditionally we've had hundreds of students from across the world, including Amity students, come to Babson for boot camp style face-to-face programs we call Babson Build. And we found ourselves in a spot where we could not deliver that, but we felt a sense of responsibility. So we quickly shifted and offered an online program called Entrepreneurial Mind Shift, week-long online program, very popular. And one of the things that we noticed is many faculty across the world said, well, can I sit in this class, also take it? But we felt it was actually inappropriate to have that. So we quickly pivoted and created Entrepreneurial Mind Shift for educators, because we knew that a lot of our colleagues across the world were also having to take their content and putting it online. And what are the best methodologies to do that? Another example is what we've been able to extend our reach through this increased desire for engagement with faculty across the world, including colleagues in India. We launched a program called the 1 Hour Entrepreneurship Educator. It's a webinar series, which we could have always done, but the pandemic kind of forced us and accelerated this. And so each month I invite a different faculty member to join join me and to share with the world what are their best pedagogical approaches, what does their research show about how we can envision a better future together. Another thought that I have is this idea that we have this Babson Collaborative Summit coming next month, and we've decided to label it Entrepreneurship Education when your campus is the world. Again, we all have quite global campuses, and we need to re-envision how we bring global learning and entrepreneurship education to our students, even without travel. That's not to say that travel shouldn't come back and that mobility is not important, but that we can enhance it with what we've learned. So looking ahead, I suspect that we will continue to see significant societal challenges such as high unemployment, which was mentioned, climate change, inequality, and more. With regard to employment, it has been noted that two categories of people will face a challenging employment situation. Young people entering the job market for the first time after completing a degree, with an economy that's been devastated by the pandemic, but also jobs susceptible to be replaced by automation and AI. These are fundamental issues at the intersection of economics, society, and technology, with defining implications for the future of work. It is becoming increasingly difficult to predict the future, so how can we as educators claim that we can develop a curriculum which develops the individual over a few years and prepares them for a lifetime of employment? Especially when we know that nearly half of the jobs that will exist in the near future don't yet exist, so how can we really prepare them? This is why I firmly believe in the power of an entrepreneurial mindset, the ability to think deeply about one's interests, have with the means at hand to have the courage to take action towards one's goals and to bring along others on that entrepreneurial journey, which Larry spoke about, I think, lifting others. This methodology of entrepreneurial thought and action is not just important, I think, for those who wish to launch startups, but rather these are important attributes for employees in large corporations, in government, private and public institutions. I don't have a crystal ball, but I believe that as we look ahead, we can create a future that supports lifelong learning and enhanced international and intercultural connections, which can only come through collaborative efforts. I imagine that more and more individuals will seek micro-credentials, bite-sized learning throughout their lives rather than just the traditional bachelor's or graduate degrees. My hope is that universities in India and the United States can lead the way in creating learning modules that are relevant, timely, and complementary to one another, and in partnerships that combine our best learning from the pandemic era. That the most fruitful educational programs will likely have a combination of online and face-to-face opportunities. This way, we can all grow our impact as we increase our engagement across continents and create a greater sense of connection and community, which is needed more than ever. I'll stop there with my short time and happy to hear questions.
Thank you, Professor Raza. I think very valid points you have given, and we will take all these points a bit later because I think that Professor Srinivasan has also raised similar points that how we can offer the programs which are quality driven and how we should be able to offer the programs which are not the full degree programs but the certificates, but how they are acceptable to the various universities. But we'll come back to you with a few questions. But we are so proud that we are partner of Babson, and the program which you are talking about, Babson Build, we have been sending students and they talk very high about this program. So we will keep on collaborating on many more initiatives. We have with us